Mr. Save My Home: How a Black Teen Helped a Billionaire Remember His Past. The morning in the old neighborhood greets with gray light seeping through the clouds. Narrow streets, paved with uneven asphalt, are lined with houses sporting peeling paint. Among them stands a small house with a sagging porch, surrounded by roses. This is where 14-year-old Jason Williams lives, a black teenager with brown eyes full of hope. He takes care of his grandmother's house, a place that holds memories of his parents. He wakes up to the creak of an old bed his grandmother bought at a flea market. The room is small but cozy. Faded photos hang on the walls. His dad with a guitar, his mom smiling, his grandmother dancing at a wedding. He reaches for the guitar, plucking the strings, but the sound is muffled, as if it too mourns those who are gone. Every morning, he rises with the same thought: I have to do something. He remembers how his grandmother told him about his father, who used to play this guitar under the stars, while neighbors gathered in the yard to listen. Now, the yard is empty, and the windows of nearby houses are boarded up. Bulldozers growl on the horizon, each roar sending a pang through his chest. "Grandma, if only you were here," he whispers, staring at her empty chair. But the world around him is crumbling. Developers from Horizon Development Corporation have decided to turn the neighborhood into another glass monstrosity, a shopping mall with flashy signs and soulless stores. Eviction notices rain down like autumn leaves, and every time Jason reads one, his heart clenches. He watches as neighbors pack their belongings, as children cry, saying goodbye to the homes they grew up in. Neighbors, Uncle Ralph, Aunt Mary with her cats, gather outside, discussing their plans. "They won't stop," Ralph sighs, rubbing his knee. "They already took my house." But inside Jason, a spark of hope remains, kindled by Miss Harper, a teacher from the local school. A woman with a warm smile and a stern gaze. She always saw something more in him than just another student. She visits him after school, bringing textbooks and a chocolate bar. "Jason, you're a smart boy," she says, sitting beside him and adjusting her glasses. "Remember how you solved that geometry problem when no one else could? You have strength. Use it." Her words sound like a spell, and he clings to them, even as fear creeps into his eyes more often. On the other side of town, in the heart of the business district, the glass tower of Horizon looms, a symbol of power and wealth. On the top floor, in an office with panoramic windows, rules Thomas Wentworth, a 55-year-old billionaire with graying temples and sharp features, a white man dressed in an impeccable designer suit. He looks like someone who has everything, yet inside he is hollow. His wife left him 10 years ago, his son stopped calling after their last fight, and business became his only family. Every day he signs contracts and gives orders, but at night, he is haunted by dreams of his childhood, fragmented images of streets that no longer exist. Wentworth wakes from a nightmare, a burning house, his mother's scream. He rubs his temples, trying to shake the vision, but it lingers. Her words sound like a spell, and he clings to them, even as fear creeps into his eyes more often. On the other side of town, in the heart of the business district, the glass tower of Horizon looms, a symbol of power and wealth. On the top floor, in an office with panoramic windows, rules Thomas Wentworth, a 55-year-old billionaire with graying temples and sharp features. A white man dressed in an impeccable designer suit. He looks like someone who has everything, yet inside he is hollow. His wife left him 10 years ago, His son stopped calling after their last fight, and business became his only family. Every day, he signs contracts and gives orders, but at night, he is haunted by dreams of his childhood, fragmented images of streets that no longer exist. Wentworth wakes from a nightmare. A burning house, his mother's scream. He rubs his temples, trying to shake the vision, but it lingers. In the shadows of these events lives Mrs. Eleanor Green, a frail old woman with a wrinkled face and eyes full of memories. Every morning, she sits on a bench near Jason's house, telling children stories about the neighborhood's past, how families once lived in harmony, how kids played in the streets, how elders sang by bonfires. She tells them about dancing under the moonlight, and Jason writes down her words. Her voice trembles, but there's strength in it. She remembers when the neighborhood was the heart of the city, and she doesn't want it to disappear. "This house has seen so much," she whispers to Jason, patting his head. "It holds the souls of those who've left." One day, standing on the porch and watching the bulldozers, Jason makes a decision. His heart pounds, his hands shake, but he clenches his fists. "I won't let them tear down our home," he whispers to himself. With a backpack slung over his shoulder, inside, an old photograph of the house, he makes his way to the Horizon Tower. The guards frown, but ignoring their shouts, he bursts into the lobby. Breathless, sweat dripping down his forehead, he sees Wentworth stepping out of the elevator. "Mr. Wentworth," Jason shouts, his voice cracking with emotion. "Save my home! Please don't let them tear it down!" The guards reach for their radios, but Thomas raises a hand. His eyebrows lift, something like surprise flickering in his eyes. "What's this kid doing here?" he mutters, then says louder, "Fine, let him in. I want to hear what he has to say." Jason's legs feel weak, but he steps forward, knowing this is his only chance. Wentworth's office is enormous. Glass walls, leather chairs, a desk buried in papers. Jason stands in the middle of the room, feeling like a speck before a mountain. His sneakers squeak on the polished floor, and his heart beats so loudly he's sure it can be heard through the walls. Thomas sits in his chair, arms crossed, watching him with cold curiosity. "You've got 5 minutes," he says, his voice sharp as a blade. "What do you want? Money? Help? Speak fast." Jason swallows, pulling a worn photograph from his backpack. His grandmother's house, surrounded by children, with the inscription on the back, "Tommy W., 1975. His hands tremble as he holds it out. "This is your house, sir," he says, his voice shaking but hopeful. "I found it in the basement. You played here as a kid, right? Please don't let them tear it down." Wentworth takes the photo, and his face changes. His cheeks pale, his fingers gripping the edge of the desk so hard, his knuckles turn white. Memories flood in like a wave. Laughter in the streets, the smell of freshly cut grass, the house where he hid from his parents' screams. He sees himself as a child, Tommy, running through these streets, building forts with the neighborhood kids. His eyes moisten, but he blinks quickly, hiding his emotions. "Where did you get this?" he asks hoarsely, his voice breaking. "This can't be." Before Jason can answer, the door bursts open and Michael Reed storms in, his face twisted with anger, eyes narrowed like a predator's. "Tom, this is just a scam," he barks, jabbing a finger at Jason. "Throw him out. He's interfering with business. This kid made up a fairy tale to squeeze money out of you." Jason takes a step back, clutching the photo tighter. Tears well up, but he lifts his chin. "It's not a lie," he shouts, his voice trembling but defiant. "Check it. This is your house, Mr. Wentworth." Michael smirks, crossing his arms. "Little liar," he sneers. "Demolition starts tomorrow, and no kid's tears will stop progress. Tom, don't fall for this." Wentworth stays silent, staring at the photo. His fingers trace the inscription, and something like doubt flickers in his eyes. He shakes his head, as if pushing thoughts away. "Wait, Michael," he says quietly. "Give me time to figure this out." Michael scoffs, but steps back, throwing Jason a venomous look. The boy feels hope warming his chest, but fear still grips him. He leaves the office, hearing Michael's footsteps behind him, and calls Miss Harper. "Miss Harper, I talked to him," he says, his voice shaking with excitement. "He kinda believed me, but that Michael, he's evil." "Good job, Jason," she replies firmly. "Hold on. Find something that proves his connection to the house. You have a talent for finding solutions. I'll call the neighbors. We'll back you up." Wentworth, now alone, calls his secretary. "Check the archives, 1975, the Riverside District. I need to know everything." He stares at the photo, and memories return. Playing with friends, his mother screams. Meanwhile, Mrs. Green, sitting on the bench, whispers to neighbors. There's an old box in the Williams basement. Records. Maybe something about Tommy. I remember him running around here as a boy. Jason nods, feeling energy return to him. The photograph is no longer just paper. It's a thread tying Wentworth's past to his pleas. He decides to go back home and check the basement. Maybe the truth that can save everything is hidden there. The next morning, Jason stands outside his house, shifting nervously, when a black limousine pulls up. Wentworth steps out, dressed in a light coat, his expression a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. "Show me what you've got," he says, glancing at the peeling walls. "But if this is a trick, I won't go easy on you." Jason nods, leading him inside. The house greets them with creaking floorboards and the scent of old wood. They descend into the basement, a dark, damp place where cobwebs hang from the ceiling and boxes are piled in corners. Jason grabs a flashlight and rummages through the clutter until he finds a dusty wooden box. "Here," he says, handing it to Wentworth. "Grandma said there was something important in here." Thomas opens the lid with trembling hands. Inside, yellowed letters, childhood drawings, newspaper clippings. He picks up one drawing, a house with a sun above it, signed Tommy, age 8. His fingers freeze, his breath grows heavy. "I drew this," he whispers, his voice breaking. "I remember sitting here with crayons. Mom yelled and I hid in the basement." Jason smiles, his eyes shining with joy. "Here," he says, handing it to Wentworth. "Grandma said there was something important in here." Thomas opens the lid with trembling hands. Inside, yellowed letters, childhood drawings, newspaper clippings. He picks up one drawing, a house with a sun above it, signed Tommy, age 8. His fingers freeze, his breath grows heavy. "I drew this," he whispers, his voice breaking. "I remember sitting here with crayons. Mom yelled, and I hid in the basement." Jason smiles, his eyes shining with joy. "So this is your house? You won't let them tear it down, right, sir?" Wentworth looks at the boy, and for a moment, his face softens. But the moment shatters when his phone rings. He pulls it out, and Michael's voice drips with venom. "Tom, this kid forged documents. I found evidence in his house. He's a vandal. Demolition starts in an hour. Don't listen to his fairy tales." Wentworth frowns, doubt creeping back. He looks at Jason, then at the drawing. "I don't know what to think," he says quietly, "but this feels too real." Meanwhile, workers outside begin whispering. One of them, a tall guy with a tattoo, glances at Jason. "Heard he broke into the office. Maybe he's a thief?" Jason's face burns. He turns to Wentworth. "That's a lie. I just want to save the house." At that moment, Miss Harper arrives on an old bicycle, clutching a stack of papers. "Jason, here, the neighbor's signatures," she says, breathless. "They're with you. This house is part of their lives." She hands the papers to the workers, and they exchange glances. One nods. "My grandfather lived here. Maybe we should check." Michael, hearing about the petition, calls again, his voice seething. "Tom, these people don't decide anything. Demolition goes as planned. Don't let this kid manipulate you." Wentworth shakes his head but doesn't answer. He sits on a crate, sifting through the letters. One, from his mother, in shaky handwriting, reads, "Tommy, stay with us. This house is our home." Tears well up, and he wipes them with his sleeve. "I didn't know," he whispers. "I thought these were just old memories." Mrs. Green, hearing the commotion, hobbles over with her cane. She looks at Wentworth and says in a trembling voice, "Tommy, you saved me from the fire in '75. I remember you dragging me through the smoke, yelling, 'Hold on, Mrs. Green. I thought you'd die, but you didn't let go. Don't destroy what was once your home. It's your soul.'" Wentworth looks at her, then at Jason. His face softens, tears glistening in his eyes. He turns to the room and says loudly, his voice cracking, "I admit my mistake. The house stays. Michael, you're fired." Michael, pale, clenches his fists but storms out without a word. The shareholders applaud, and Jason feels the weight lift from his shoulders. He looks at Wentworth, who nods at him, smiling for the first time. A week later, the city buzzes with news. A crowd gathers outside Jason's house. Journalists with cameras, neighbors with flowers, kids with balloons. Wentworth holds a press conference on an improvised podium set up on the porch. Cameras flash, microphones stretch toward him as he stands beside Jason, wearing a simple sweater instead of his usual suit. "Today, I announce the creation of the Neighborhood Legacy Fund," he says, his voice firm but warm. "This boy, Jason Williams, reminded me of who I used to be. His grandmother's house is saved, and I promise to protect places like this. Progress shouldn't erase memory. I want every home to be part of history, not its victim." Jason, standing beside him, beams. His eyes shine as he looks at the crowd, his hands trembling slightly with excitement. "Thank you, Mr. Wentworth," he says softly but proudly. "This is our home now, and I want other kids to see it too." Journalists applaud, cameras capture the moment. The opening ceremony lasts all day. Speeches, dances, songs. The fund helps 10 neighborhoods, and reporters write about Wentworth's new approach. Miss Harper, standing in the crowd, pushes forward and hugs Jason so tightly he almost loses balance. "I'm proud of you, Jason," she whispers, smiling through tears. "You did the impossible. You showed that one person can change everything." Neighbors approach, shaking his hand. A woman holding a child says, "Thank you, son. My baby will grow up with these stories." Peter, the tattooed worker, nods. "You're a hero, kid. I quit that demolition crew. Now I work with the fund." Michael sends a letter, delivered by courier. It reads, "Tom, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'm leaving the business." Wentworth reads it and sighs, but doesn't reply. Mrs. Green, leaning on her cane, approaches him. and hands him a small locket on a thin chain. "From the fire," she says, her voice trembling. "You saved me, Tommy. Keep this as a reminder. I always knew there was good in you." Wentworth takes the locket, his fingers shaking slightly. He looks at the old woman, gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you, Eleanor," he whispers. "I won't forget. This is more than memory. It's a promise." The house slowly becomes a community center. The walls are repaired, new windows added, and inside, a museum opens. Wentworth's letters and drawings are displayed in glass cases, while Mrs. Green reads her stories to children. Jason becomes the fund's youth representative, helping organize tours. "It's like a new beginning," he tells Miss Harper, smiling. A year passes. The neighborhood transforms. Streets adorned with flowers, houses renovated, and in the yard of Jason's grandmother's house, a small museum stands with a plaque, "The Legacy of Thomas Wentworth." Children run across the grass. Laughter fills the air. And Jason's father's old guitar is now used in courtyard concerts. Kids write letters to Wentworth, and he replies, sharing new projects. The latest project, a park with trees planted by neighbors. Wentworth, in a simple sweater instead of a suit, sits on a bench, playing ball with kids. His face glows, just like when he was Tommy, a carefree boy. He tosses the ball to Jason, who catches it deftly and laughs. "I forgot how important this was," Wentworth says, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thank you for reminding me, Jason. You gave me back my soul." Jason sits beside him, handing him a glass of homemade lemonade. "This is our home, sir," he says, smiling. "And yours too. I want everyone to know its story." Mrs. Green, sitting under a tree nearby, smiles as she watches them. Her fingers fiddle with the locket around her neck, her eyes glistening with happy tears. She teaches children to dance, showing them steps from the past. "You came back, Tommy," she whispers to the wind. "This neighborhood is alive again. I see the souls of those who left. They're smiling." The sun sets, painting the sky gold and pink. On the museum porch, children gather, listening as Miss Harper tells the story of the 1975 fire and the boy who became a hero. Wentworth stands, walks over to Jason, and places a hand on his shoulder. "We'll build something greater," he says quietly. "Not just houses, a future." Hope shines over the streets, promising new stories and new beginnings.